Hello and welcome to our first video for our critical reasoning series for the GMAT Focus edition. This is an update to our legendary GMAT course here on YouTube, in which we're adapting this whole new material to the GMAT Focus. By the way, we're also offering a free GMAT ebook with 100 high-quality GMAT questions. Just go to the description below and follow the instructions to get your ebook. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to click on that notification bell to receive the latest updates when we upload a new video. On this video, we'll cover the introduction, the fundamentals of the critical reasoning question type for the verbal section. This video is made in such a way that you will take most advantage if you watch it uninterrupted from beginning to end. Do not skip around. So now we're going to start by talking about the basics of the critical reasoning question type. Okay, so now we're going to start with the introduction for critical reasoning. We're going to lay out the foundations for this type of question of the verbal section. Okay, so this is what a critical reasoning question looks like. You have something that is called the argument. Most of the time, this is going to be called the argument. Okay, then you have a question. And finally, you get 5 answer choices, okay? Always in the GMAT, you always get 5 answer choices. You don't have to write. So here you have your 5 options, your question and your argument. In my opinion, my main suggestion would be you should always start out by reading the question first. Because in that way, you're going to be able to select the theory that you're going to be applying for this question, okay? Now, the question, there could be various questions, different types of questions. So some of them will ask you to strengthen something inside the argument. Some other ones will ask you to weaken something, the conclusion of the argument. Some others will ask you, for example, for the inference. Okay, so there are different types of questions. Different questions have different types of theories also. So you have to be able to first get acquainted with all the different theories, and number 2, be able to identify the question clearly. So whenever you read a question, you know what they're asking you and you can select the theory accordingly. Okay, but this is what a critical reasoning exercise looks like. Now you get 2 minutes here to give your answer. Okay, now remember in sentence correction you had 1.5 minutes on average. Here for critical reasoning you get 2 minutes. Of course, you're very soon gonna find out while you practice, right, that this 2 minutes holds true for the average critical reasoning, which is the intermediate. Okay, intermediate. Now for those easy ones, you should spend less time. Maybe 1.5 minutes is enough. And for the hard ones, they're gonna have more text. They're gonna have more words here, and also a harder, let's say a more complex vocabulary. So you're gonna have to maybe allow a little bit more, maybe 2:15 to 20, okay, for those hard ones. So that's the timing for critical reasoning. Now, talking about the question types, we get several question types for critical reasonings. In this chart, you see the most common of them, okay? Now, we have categorized these types of questions in 3 columns. The first one has to do with strengthening and weakening. Number 2 has to do with inferences. Number 3, other types, okay? Now, if you notice, there are 5 question types that go inside the strengthening and weakening column. Why? Because even though these are different types of questions, all of them use the same theory. Okay, all of them use the same theory. All of them have the same components. So basically, all of them will ask you to strengthen or to weaken an argument in different ways. Okay, so inside this category for strengthening and weakening, you're gonna see the question about strengthening, right? Of course, then the question about weakening is almost the same thing. It's just the inverse, right? I mean, strengthening and weakening are 2 different sides of the same coin, but they have the same theory. Okay, whatever you do to strengthen, if you just invert it, the opposite would be to weaken. You see, most of the time they have a positive and negative relationship. Not always, but most of the time they do. Okay, and they use the same theory. Now, the question for assumption, sometimes they're going to ask you for the assumption of the argument. It is very related to strengthening, okay? Because the assumption is a kind of strengthening with the main characteristic that it is necessary. We're going to be seeing that in this video more closely when we tackle assumptions, okay? Then the question that asks you to evaluate the argument, also the same thing as strengthening and weakening. It's just like the pre-thinking in order for you to strengthen and weaken. Kind of the assumption, but not giving the assumption something that is in the pre-thinking, okay? And then explain the paradox is very similar to strengthen, just something that explains and make the whole argument logical, okay? And then we go to the second column, we have the inferences. Now, inferences are a totally different animal. They're a different type of question. We use a different theory in order to solve an inference question than we use for strengthening and weakening, okay? Now, in the inference category, we have the inferences on their own. We have the solution. Sometimes they're going to ask you for a solution for you to provide, and it's important for you to have a clear concept of the argument. So you have to have a clear understanding of what the argument is about and what the problem is about in order for you to provide a solution, okay? Providing an example is kind of the same thing. You first have to read the argument, you have to understand it fully, and with that you can provide an example, basically repeating it but with an example, because that's what an example does. It repeats information basically, but just explains it a little better. And then summarizing, almost the same thing. So all of this, providing a solution, providing an example, summarizing something, because they kind of all often give you a little summary of the argument, and maybe the solution just goes one step further, right? But all of them require a very good understanding of the argument and of the concepts that happen in there. They usually are solved by using the theory for inferences, okay? Because you're not trying to weaken or strengthen something that the author has said. You're just trying to repeat. Basically, let's say that if the GMAT asks you for an inference, it's like a teacher, like let's say you're in college, your teacher asking you to repeat or summarize what you've learned, kind of thing, okay? Not to come up with something to argue against or for it, okay? And then you have other types of questions that are in this last column, and these types of questions are different. They are not about inferences, they are not about strengthening or weakening, they are just different. Now here we have the three main ones: the boldface, the dialogue, and mimic the reasoning. So these are the types of questions for critical reasoning that you're going to get in the verbal section of the GMAT, okay? We're going to be seeing most of them in this lesson, okay? The most important ones. So now let's go to this one, facts versus opinions, okay? The main thing for you to be able to detect the argument, to identify what the argument is about, is to distinguish pretty clearly facts from opinions. So you have to be able to separate them clearly, okay? So you have an argument, let's say. Most of those sentences you see inside the argument are going to be facts. And some of them, or maybe only one of them, is going to be an opinion. And it's very important for us to focus on the opinion, because the opinion usually is going to be the main conclusion, okay? Main conclusion. So you have to think that when the author is writing an argument, he or she is basically trying to convince you of something. They are going to try to sell you an idea, okay? And then in order for you to weaken or strengthen that idea, or just to repeat the information that has been stated, you have to understand what the idea is about, okay? So here, a fact is a statement about something that has occurred. That's the important thing. A fact is just that, a fact, something has happened. And something, of course, that something can be proven. You can give evidence in order to prove a fact, okay? Most of the sentences in the argument will contain facts. And a fact cannot be contradicted. So you cannot say that a fact didn't happen. For example, facts would be this. Examples. It rained yesterday. If the author says it rained yesterday, you have to believe him, okay? Because most likely he or she is not really coming up with this, all right? They are just reporting on something that happened. So we cannot say, oh, the author is lying and it didn't rain yesterday. That wouldn't be a good argument, a good logic to follow in critical reasoning. So if there's a fact, if it doesn't look like the author is making this up or speculating about this, if it just looks like most of the times that the author is just reporting about something that has previously happened, then we cannot contradict this, okay? We have to take that at its face value. The same thing here. The Romans had one of the most powerful armies. Okay, so if the author is just reporting on that, he's just mentioning that as common knowledge, then that's a fact. If that's a fact, then we cannot contradict it. The Book of the Dead is one of the oldest books. The same thing. If these are reports or facts, factual information of things that have happened in the past, then we have to take it as such. Okay, we cannot argue against them. So these are facts. Now we're going to talk about opinions. The opinions are the counterpart of the facts. Okay, so in an argument we have facts and then we have opinions, right? Usually we only get one opinion, there could be more. Okay, it's very important for us because I mentioned this. In the argument, the author will give you evidence in order to support an opinion. So they will be trying to convince you of something. They will be trying to sell you an idea. That idea will be the opinion, which they will call main conclusion. Okay, main conclusion. So normally that's the way arguments are written, and we have to understand what they want to convince us of. So an opinion is a statement that cannot be proven. Opinions can be proven. They can be supported though. That is objective and for which the author will try to provide support. Of course, they will give support in order to bolster the opinion. Okay, but it doesn't mean that the opinion was proven. It's just supported. Okay, the main conclusion will be the most important opinion in the argument. Okay, so when you only have one opinion inside the argument, that's going to be the main conclusion. So if you only have one opinion, that's equal to your main conclusion. Now, if you have more than one opinion, then you have to see which ones out of those 2 or 3 opinions is the most important. And the most important opinion will be the main conclusion. Okay, you can't have 3 main conclusions. I mean, you only have one main conclusion, which is the most important opinion in the argument. So opinions will be things like this. Joe should buy a house. Okay, that's like a suggestion, like a recommendation. That's an opinion, right? Should. I mean, can you prove it though that he should buy a house? How can you prove that he should buy a house or he should do something? I mean, you could argue, you could give evidence in order to kind of convince people of that, but that cannot be proven. So that's an opinion. Okay. In light of a new discovery, the theory needs to be reinterpreted. How can you prove that this needs to be reinterpreted? I mean, you can, of course, you can convince people of that, but that's not something that can be proven. The theory needs to be reinterpreted is an opinion. It is clear that people would be better off if they are all on welfare. Okay, it is clear for whom? For the author, for whoever wrote this, right? But it's not clear to me, for example. So it's not something that can be proven. It's basically, it is clear to this person who is writing this that this is the best course of action. So basically, it is clear for this person, whoever is writing this, that this is the best course of action. Okay, but that's something that cannot be proven, like politics, like tastes, right? Like art. So this is very subjective. So those are things you cannot prove, but things that you can support. Okay, so these are opinions. So now, what we're going to do here is you're going to get 1 minute. We're not going to do this yet. I mean, you don't have to give me the answer right now. Okay, don't try to get the answer. I mean, if you could, that's fine. But the first thing you want to do in critical reasoning is to be able to identify facts and to know how to distinguish them from opinions. Okay? And so the main thing here would be try to do this, read this in 1 minute, and try to get the main conclusion. That's how you start. Okay, remember that right now we're seeing the most basic things for critical reasoning, and to be able to identify the main conclusion is by far the most basic thing. Don't rush it. Okay, don't try to skip this, because if you don't know how to identify main conclusions clearly, then you're gonna suffer big time later on. Okay, so this is just critical reasoning 101 to identify main conclusions, and you have to be infallible. You cannot fail at identifying main conclusions. So you have 1 minute, and then I'm going to give you the answer. Of course, so here the answer for the question that we just established, what the main conclusion is. The main conclusion is here at the end, right? Therefore, the new Jet 3000 will allow PG Airlines to secure the financial stability it needs. That one's the main conclusion. Why? Because that's an opinion, right? Therefore, basically, that's a keyword for opinion because they're giving you as a conclusion from all the evidence I have listed, from all the evidence I've presented, and then they say something in the future. So if they're saying something in the future, most likely they cannot prove it. Okay, you cannot prove something that will happen in the future. You can only support it. So that's a conclusion here. Everything else is a fact, right? Has several flights, that's something that happens, so that's a fact. PG airline financial stability depends on, that's something in the present. That just looks like information. It doesn't look like the author is making that up, right? He's just reporting on something. And those are the only two sentences, actually. Here, it is planning to replace. So it is planning to replace sounds like something that's currently going on. So it's a fact, okay? So here we have three facts, and then at the end we have the main conclusion. Now, the main conclusion doesn't need to be at the end. Sometimes it could be at the beginning, okay? But most of the time it will be at the end of the argument. So here we're going to see some tips and tricks in order to identify facts and opinions really quickly, okay? So there are some keywords for facts. If you are watching this lesson, I expect that you already watched the lesson for sentence correction. So you know there are some words called subordinators, right? So those words have different meaning, but some subordinators have the meaning of explanation, right? And these are words like because, like as, like since, okay? So whenever you start a clause or a sentence with one of these words, then that's a fact. It cannot be. That subordinate clause cannot be an opinion, okay? If I say it is called because it is knowing a lot, because it is knowing a lot, that's the subordinated clause that is being subordinated with because, right? So that subordinated clause is a fact, okay? So if you start with because, any clause that starts with because as is becomes a fact immediately. So that's very easy for us. It is called could be an opinion, yeah, but because it is knowing a lot, this part here, this subordinated clause, is a fact. Now, whatever is in the past tense most of the time will be a fact, right? Especially if that's something that already happened, okay? The team lost yesterday. So this looks like it's just information. Most likely the author is reporting on it. So that's just a fact. They lost. There's nothing we can do about that, right? Because it's something that happened, okay? Now, you gotta be careful though with sometimes the author might try to speculate something that may have happened in the past. So if something may have happened in the past, that could be an opinion, okay? But most of the time, something is just in the past tense. Without may have lost, that's a different thing, right? Without could have lost. Okay, if the author states something in the past, 99% of the time, that's going to be a fact. Okay, that's going to be a fact also. Now, we also have some keywords for opinions, okay? Some modal verbs like should, like must, okay, because they give you opinions, right? Peter should kill the bad guys. Should kill. That's a recommendation. That's subjective, okay? The government must pay for something, okay? Must pay for something, so must. How can we prove that they must do something? That cannot be proven, okay? So those are just opinions. Number two, interpretations. Whatever is an interpretation is an opinion, all right? It doesn't matter if it isn't being interpreted by a scientist or somebody who knows their craft. Still, any interpretation is an opinion. For example, the evidence indicates that the saber-tooth ate grapes. Okay, we have this subordinate clause that the saber-tooth ate grapes. That's some information that they are telling me that is being supported by the evidence. But now, is this 100% guaranteed that the saber-tooth ate grapes? It's something that really happened, or it's something that it's possibly happened, maybe, right? So in this case, it is something that possibly happened. Why? Because this information right here is being supported by the evidence, but it doesn't have to be necessarily true. You see? So whatever gets supported and cannot be proven becomes an opinion. So this interpretation, this one here, is basically an opinion. It cannot be a fact because we don't know whether it happened or not. What we know is that it's very possible that it happened. That's what we know. Okay, but it's still an opinion, not a fact. Here there are other keywords for opinions. For example, some resolution keywords. These are very important. Therefore, hence, consequently, thus, and in conclusion. So whenever you have a clause after one of these resolution keywords, more than likely you're going to be in front of an opinion. Therefore, Pinocchio was a good boy. All right, Pinocchio was a good boy. So therefore, it's basically that probably they already gave you information before, right? So you're concluding something here. That conclusion is an opinion, right? A conclusion is the same. I mean, for us here in critical reasoning, is going to be a word that is exchangeable for the word opinion. So they are going to be used, both of them are going to be used interchangeably. Something that's an inference also, right? It is clear, it is evident. We saw this before in the example, right? It is clear for whom? It is clear for the person who's writing the argument, for the author, but it doesn't have to be true, you see? So it is clear that Seinfeld is better than Friends. Okay, for this person who's writing this sentence, that's clear, but it's not necessarily true. It is their opinion, okay? So those are big indications that you have an opinion. When you have resolution keywords and when you have inference keywords such as it is clear or it is evident. Perfect, so now we're going to do a little problem set. We're going to do 2 problem sets. This is the first one, okay? So I'll give you 30 seconds, only 30 seconds to identify whether these statements, one by one, is an opinion or it's a fact, okay? So let's go, 3, 2, 1, let's start. Okay, so now you should be done, right? But before that, don't forget to follow us in our social media sites, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, because we're releasing a lot of quality and exclusive content in those sites. So just make sure you follow us there. So here we start with number 1. Goku should have never sacrificed himself. Okay, is this an opinion or a fact? That's an opinion, right? Should have never. So that cannot be proven. So whether somebody should or should not cannot be proven. Number 2, the first Avengers movie came out in 2012. What's that? That's a fact. Why? Because something that happened, right? I'm not here arguing something. I'm just stating or reporting on something that happened before, okay? Something that can be proven. Number 3, the recent war indicates that people don't know how to get along together. What is that, a fact or an opinion? Of course, that's an opinion. Indicates that. So you say that you have a war, right? That war is a fact, but then that's indicating something. So this one's an interpretation by the person. Whoever wrote this, the author, is interpreting from the war that people don't know how to get along together. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true. So that's an opinion. Number 4, Iron Man was a better character than Thor. That's of course an opinion. What's the better character? Why? Because that you cannot prove that A is better than B. You can prove that A is faster than B. Yes. You can prove that A is taller than B. Yes. But you cannot prove that one is better than the other. Because better in terms of what? How are you going to measure who's better than the other one? So that's an opinion. Number 5, The Godfather would have been successful even if it wasn't so heavily promoted. What do you think about that? Opinion, of course, would have been successful. How do you know? How do you know that's something real? That's something that would have happened. There's no way for us to know, right? So even though that's in the past, it's a conditional, so we don't know if it would have happened. But this person believes that it would have happened. But so that's an opinion, not a fact. Okay, now let's go to problem set number 2. So this second problem set It goes from question 6 to exercise 10. You're going to get 30 seconds to do this, so let's start right now. Okay, it should be done by this time. Number 6. Therefore, the flu is caused by an unknown virus. What is that? It looks like an opinion. Why? Because it has a keyword, therefore. So basically they're saying, based in other evidence, I can interpret this thing. We can conclude that this thing happens. But something that's being supported, it's not something that is real necessarily. Okay? So number 6 is an opinion. Number 7, the flooding was caused by the rain. This looks like a fact. I mean, if you have, for example, therefore the flooding was caused by the rain, that would look like an opinion, but in this case, you don't have any keywords. It just looks like a sentence, a fact, something that has happened. It's in the past, so it looks like a fact. Okay? Number 8, Harry Potter is a wizard who doesn't know how to keep quiet. That looks like a fact also. Why? Because they are describing Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter is something, okay? This person could be mistaken, maybe, but it's a fact, okay? It looks like a fact. Now, it's important for me to go over something here. We don't really care whether the author, or we don't need to assess whether some of the facts given by the author may be inaccurate or not, okay? That's not part of our job. The thing is, we have to assess whether whatever the author is saying looks like a fact or looks like something that he is interpreting, but not like something that is a consensus, right? Number 8, because of the way it is being written, it doesn't look like the author is doing an effort of interpreting something there. It just looks like he is reporting on that. He is describing something. Maybe he just got this description from the book. Maybe he just got it from Wikipedia, or maybe he just got it somewhere else. But it doesn't look like he is coming up with this description, okay? Now, if there are other keywords that indicate that this guy, this writer, is coming up with this description, then that would be an opinion, okay? But in this case, there are no keywords, so that looks like a fact. Number 9, Spidey knows that his friends are fake. Okay, that looks also like a fact, okay? Because the author is giving it without any sort of hesitation. It's basically writing this sentence without any sort of doubt. He uses the verb knows, right? He knows, and there's no other keyword to kind of indicate us that this author has interpreted this concept from other evidence, okay? It would have been different, again, if the author had, it is clear that Spidey knows, that would have been a different thing, because then the author would be revealing that actually he's coming up with this concept, okay? But the way things are now in number 9, there are no keywords for opinions, so it looks like a fact. Number 10, the Beatles is a better band than the Stones. Okay, the Beatles is a better band than the Stones. Of course, that's an opinion. Why? Because of the word better. The author is judging. And like in the last problem set, we also had one with better. When we have comparisons, that could be a fact if there is a way for you to measure the levels. Here we don't know, there is no way for us to know if one is better than the other. We don't know, we're not told about better at what. Okay, so in this case, that's just too general, too broad, something that cannot be proven. So number 10 is an opinion. So now we're done with the problem set and we're done with this brief introduction, okay? Now remember, don't try to rush things. The first thing you want to do in critical reasoning, and I see this over and over with students, sometimes they don't know how to find the main conclusion, and that's because it is not clear for them the difference between a fact and an opinion, okay? And that's something very basic. So you should make sure you have absolutely no problems in this department. Okay, Okay, now let's move forward to the next lesson. Perfect, so now you can watch the second video of our critical reasoning series, or you can go and watch the other videos from the other series we have, the data insight series, the reading comprehension one, or the quantitative series. Remember to request your free ebook, and most importantly, if you are really looking to get a high score on the GMAT because you want to go to one of those top MBAs in the world, then you can always count on us, Liberty Test Prep, to help you out. You can check our private tutoring packages on our website here at the bottom of the video, or on the description below also you find the link. Our experts will be more than willing to help you get the score you need.